In simple words, the Constitution is the document that outlines the foundation of our country and created our government. But what happens when there's a gray area in the guidelines for the United States? Since the late 1800s, the Fifth Amendment has proven to be one of the most unclear areas in the Constitution in regards of the right of the government to take private land, otherwise known as eminent domain. According to Columbia University, eminent domain is defined as the power of the state to seize property without owner's consent. The Takings Clause in the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution forbids the taking of property for public use without just compensation. But this then beckons the question, what qualifies as public use and just compensation? Traditionally, public works such as schools, hospitals, and highways have been enough reason. Many people have seen the effects of eminent domain and have formed their own opinions about it.
Do you think that the government should be able to enforce eminent domain for corporate purposes?
No, I don't think it's the government's job to put business corporations in front of people.
Do you think that current eminent domain criteria is sufficient?
No, because I feel people often go uncompensated for their land, and I don't think that that's right.
What's your opinion about the government's use of eminent domain?
Well, I believe that it's wrong because they're not really just destroying a house, they're destroying somebody's home, and many people have personal attachments to their homes, and it's where they grow up and where they plan to live the rest of their life, and I don't think it's right to buy somebody off for something that's not worth money.
In 1998, a case occurred right in New London, Connecticut, which pushed the Supreme Court to answer the question of what exactly is public use and drew national attention while doing it. It all began when the pharmaceutical company Pfizer decided to build a facility in the Fort Trumbull area. This inspired the New London Development Corporation to create a plan to redevelop the entire area into a modern space, which was sure to attract people and boost the failing economy. The plan, which was approved by the City Council in 2000, would create a $3 million research center in Pfizer, as well as a waterfront conference hotel, retail shops and restaurants, a pedestrian riverwalk, a residential neighborhood, marinas, and a new U.S. Coast Guard museum. Who wouldn't want this beautiful tourist attraction in their own backyard? Well, the answer is those who would have to give up their own backyards, as well as the rest of their homes to make it a reality. Well, these homeowners were not ready to give up their homes without a fight. Therefore, this group of citizens led by Suzette Kelo sued the City of New London and was ready to take their case to court. The Kelo side argued that a private company did not constitute enough reason to enforce eminent domain and take their homes, especially since the NLDC admitted that they at the time had no specific plans for the particular area where the homes currently stood. The defense rebutted that the potential to create jobs and restore the depleting area justified the use of eminent domain on their homes. This led to both a constitutional as well as a moral debate. Was it right to take the homes of others if prosperity was promised? In 2005, when the case of Kelo reached the Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision, the court ruled that the corporation Pfizer and the NLDC qualified as public purpose, with their goal to redevelop the area and local economy of the New London. Although the two phrases public use and public purpose seem synonymous, they hold two different meanings. When a property is used for public use, the plans for the new works in that area are definite and will surely benefit the entire area. The term public purpose is used when the plan for the area is still in the making and is the belief of the state that a portion of the population has the potential to benefit from it. Therefore, after this case, it was made clear that corporations could potentially enforce eminent domain in order to seize property.
The Supreme Court ruled that the company Pfizer served a public purpose rather than a public use by building a facility in New London. What is your opinion about this interpretation of the Constitution?
I would disagree with the Supreme Court's interpretation there. I think that public use and public purpose are different concepts. I understand the argument that they're making, that the community might stand to benefit, especially with economic growth, the jobs that would be brought in, etc. But I don't think that the intention of eminent domain was, by the founders, was that a private company could buy public land or create private land out of public land. So I would disagree with that, and I think Kelo's argument that those two concepts are different is probably an important precedent that should have been preserved by the Supreme Court. So I don't know what's going to come of it, but I'm interested to see what happens in the future.
3 years after the hearing, Suzette Kelo's house was relocated and the other 15 properties were destroyed for the redevelopment plan. Most of the landowners moved to a different community or to another state altogether. Despite all of the court battles and seizing of the property, the building plan never went through. Nothing ever rose from the dirt of the destroyed homes, and not a single member of the community received any sort of benefit. The redevelopment company could not raise the funds necessary to create the new area, therefore abandoning the project altogether. Essentially, the sole reason these people lost their homes was to create an empty lot, which is now used as a dumping ground. Where people's homes once stood is where people throw their garbage. In 2010, Pfizer completed a merger with another company, consequently closing their new London facility and taking all the jobs they had promised with it. The city received no new jobs, no tax revenues, and virtually no benefits from the project. In fact, it cost the city and the state approximately $78 million to purchase the privately owned property and prepare for the new area. All in all of this battle resulted with no benefit to the city or their citizens and much loss. It stemmed controversy and gave citizens and legislators a new view on eminent domain in the U.S. Since Kelo, New London has expressed deep regrets for the actions that they took during this time, and the state of Connecticut as a whole has made many efforts to remedy it and prevent similar cases. When the Supreme Court's decision spread, state legislators began to review their policies to ensure that when eminent domain was enforced, it provided just compensation to the private owner and was only used when necessary and suitable. Prior to Kelo, only 8 states specifically prohibited eminent domain to be used for economic purposes. However, by July 2009, 43 states enacted reform legislation and 21 enacted laws which set reforms on the power of municipalities to use eminent domain for economic development. Take the state of Minnesota, for example. The legislature passed a law which redefined public use and prevents corporations from taking property for economic development. This was a direct result from Kelo. Another prime example which correlates directly with the case was in Tennessee, where the state legislature gave clear and reasonable definitions to public use, just compensation, and fair market value. They left little room for interpretation or error to warrant that there would be no cases like that in Connecticut. Some states, such as New Hampshire and Missouri, enacted legislation that would define just compensation as 3 times or 150% higher than market value. All of these actions were taken in order to protect citizens from the threat of unjust eminent domain. A recent example of the state enforcing reformed eminent domain is on Chase Avenue in local Waterbury, Connecticut. In recent years, the city has enforced eminent domain upon 12 homes in order to destroy them and make room to widen the busy road. Was this a fair example of public use? Anyone who has come across Chase Avenue area knows it is hectic to say the least. Therefore, as a solution, the city of Waterbury chose to add another right lane. However, the area has undoubtedly become more hectic during this construction time and caused much more traffic. Have you noticed since the construction more activity in this area or traffic?
Well, same amount of traffic, it's just goofed up more than it was before.
Okay. Do you think that taking those homes and widening the road was necessary?
Not really.
Also, businesses up and down Chase Avenue, which were led to believe that they would become more prosperous, have suffered. Owners claim that they have lost power, water, and even some business due to all the constant heavy construction. Local business owner Carmen Anthony organized these concerned business owners into a group who aimed to protect their business as well as their right. What drove you and the others to create the group and spearhead the whole project?
Well, we found that when they initially started the project, which was just about 2 years ago, there was a lot of construction going on the road, and that wasn't what we were first told maybe 3 years ago when they initiated the whole project, that they were going to make sure that both sides of the road would be open, either going up or coming down Chase Avenue. So then after they got started with the program, they were blocking off one side of the road. And the gentleman Mike that owns the Stadium restaurant and Carmen that owns Carmen Anthony's, they seemed that they were really being affected. They had it to a point where their entrance was just totally blocked off. So we said, I mean, this isn't right. This isn't what they told us. And it's almost that, I don't want to say they didn't care, but it was that they weren't taking regard for the business. You know, they promised us, just a certain amount of time. The road's only going to be shut down to one lane, for 1 hour, and then, it's posted a day. And sometimes it's, from 11 to 3, which is key time for myself, and, key time for Carmen, and key time for the stadium.
After all this is complete, all the construction, do you think the widening of the road was worth enforcing eminent domain and all the obstructions to your businesses?
Well, that's gonna, that's gonna tell itself in time. Right now, for the amount of aggravation and the loss of business that we've sustained, and Carmen and the stadium, really sustained more than us right now because they've been working down more in that area. They're going to be starting phase 2, I believe, in July of this year. And phase 2 starts from the middle of Smiths and Seraphims and goes all the way up past McDonald's. So, seeing as telling, and we'll have to see what happens when it's complete. It's right now. It was a huge undertaking for us and the other business, so I don't know if it's going to help.
Eminent domain is written into our Constitution and an unavoidable risk to any land-owning citizen. However, ensuring that homes which are seized for public works and put to just and deserving uses are rights for every citizen. The case of Kelo versus the City of New London and Suzette Kelo gave a recognizable face to unjust eminent domain and gave lawmakers the push they needed to ensure the Fifth Amendment is interpreted in a fair way and not left to the benefit of corporations.
Finally, the federal government said it was constitutional to steal not only my home, but the homes of all my neighbors, and in fact anyone's home for the purpose of economic development. Basically, what that means, if someone who can add more to the grand list of your town or city than you and your property can be made history.